Hey kids, welcome to Unit 5, Lesson 5, Enhanced For Loops, exercise number 2. We have an investigate and modify. Run the program to observe the results. Then experiment with the program by making the following modifications. Change one line at a time, then run the program after each change to observe the results. Let's take a look at our code before we see what we have to do. We have a 2D array here. And it looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows of information. And within those rows, we have a bunch of data stored. Down here, we have a couple of print statements printing with enhanced for loops. Looks like we're calling that numbers method. Looks like from the numbers class, so it looks like it's static. We're calling the get values enhanced method, passing along our array, printing off with an enhanced for loop. We're doing the same thing, but now with the regular loop. So we're calling the get values regular method. Then we're printing off multiply each value by 2. We are calling the change values method and passing along numbers. Then we're printing with an enhanced for loop, and we're getting the values enhanced from the numbers array we passed along. Let's take a look at numbers.java. Over here, we have our first method, get values enhanced, and this is our first look at an enhanced for loop with a 2D array. How does this work? If we look at our numbers here, I said we had 5 rows, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Within those rows, we have additional information. Those are our columns. Those are also arrays. That's why we call 2D arrays arrays of arrays, rows and columns. Our outer loop here is looking through each of these rows. So it's looking through all of 10, all of 20, all of 30, all of 40, all of 50 is a 1D array. That's why that data type there has the brackets, because it's a 1D array we're looking through. The row variable here could be anything. It's just easier to use that because that's what we're looking through. Just like our regular enhanced for loops, we have to call the array we're looking through, numbers. Our inner array is going to look through each of those individual arrays from above. That's why we have to have the same name here. So you'll see whatever we created our original data type to store our rows has to be used down here because our enhanced for loop, our inner loop, is going to look through each one of those items within that row. Again, just like our regular enhanced for loop, we're creating a temporary variable to store that. This is called value. In here, every time we add an element, it is going to get added to results. Every time we go through the inner loop, we're going to do a return or go to the next line. Our outer loop will run once, and then our inner loop will run for the entire time. So not much different from looking through it through a regular for loop. Speaking of that, here's our regular for loop right here. We've seen this a bunch lately. Our outer loop, that's taking care of the row, is row major because row's on the outside. Our inner loop, again, is handling those columns. And because we're looking through each individual row, we have to specify that because we don't want to look through the outside elements. We want to look through the inside ones. Same thing, each result is getting added in. After the inner loop finishes its iteration, we're going to get a return, progress to the outer loop, iterate once, go through our entire inner loop. Do that until it's done. Then we have this change values method. And this is just a regular enhanced for loop from above. This time we're multiplying it times 2. I also want you to notice we're missing a return on this too. I think this is going to come in key to understanding why this program works the way it does. Let's head back to my console. When I hit run, what do I think is going to happen? I think we're going to get a print statement. It says printing with an enhanced for loop. It'll print off this 2D array. We're going to get another print statement, printing with a regular loop. It's going to print off the same exact array. Then we're going to get another print statement. It says multiplying each value by 2. Then we're going to get one that says printing with an enhanced for loop. This time, though, I think we're going to get this same exact array. I don't think we're going to get that multiplied by 2. Let's hit run, see if I'm right, then we'll talk it out. Enhanced loop here, numbers are the same. Regular loop, numbers are the same. Printing with enhanced for loop, numbers are the same. But you're thinking, Mr. Rhodes, I know we multiplied it times 2 on line 34. And if you take a minute and stop back and think about how an enhanced for loop works, remember, it just has a temporary variable to store it. It doesn't actually store anything as it iterates through. So the code isn't working as intended because the for each loop used to iterate over the elements in a 2D array is using a local variable value to store each element, which is then multiplied by 2. However, this changes to the local variable value. It is not being reflected in the original array numbers because the loop variable is not referenced to the original array element. Instead of modifying the local variable, we should probably modify the index. And I think we probably have a question that deals with that here. Now that I think we understand the code, let's take a look at our questions and see what we have to do. In number Java, what does the outer enhanced for loop represent in the get values enhance method? How does this compare to the regular outer for loop in the get values regular method? We just talked about this. Again, this outer row is looking through the rows or the elements in the array. Our inner loop is looking through what's in each of those individual arrays or the columns. So again, remember, our outer loop is looking through the rows, but it's getting the entire array. That's why we have to declare our data type as a 1D array. And when we're looking through the inner array, remember our array we're looking through is the one we created of the outside rows. That one is now looking through each individual element within that row from above. Let's take a look at 3. We're going to change the inner for loop and change values method to the following code. Control C here. Let's go down. And we need to get this little curly Q, paste that in. Now, when we go through our loop, we're actually accessing individual elements and multiplying it times 2. That means when I hit run, I think I'm going to get the array from above, but multiplied by 2. Again, why? Because this time we're actually accessing and changing individual elements. The other one, we were just accessing a local variable, changing that, moving on to the next one, and overriding it. Let's hit run and see if I'm right. And you can see we have our numbers the same from above. And now we're also multiplying times 2 to our array. Again, why do I think this happened? This happened because we were actually accessing these individual elements and multiplying it times 2, not multiplying a local variable times 2 and then overriding it on the next iteration. Key takeaway from this lesson is just understanding how to use an enhanced for loop with a 2D array. Remember how we have to declare the outer loop. It is getting all the elements within each row, so we have to declare it as a 1D array. Then we have to tell it what array we're looking through. Our inner loop is going to handle each of those elements within the array. So the array we're looking through in the inner array is the same name as the array we created on the outer array. Much like a regular enhanced for loop, we're creating a temporary variable to store all of those elements within that row. And what we do with that really depends. Remember the big difference between an enhanced for loop and a regular loop. Enhanced for loop, that local variable doesn't change anything. In a for loop, we're actually accessing individual elements. Take a lesson from this. We need to do some sort of results or store that information other than as a local variable. So keep that in mind if you're using enhanced for loop. Hopefully this video helped you understand enhanced for loops a little better. As always, if you have any questions, kids, come see me. Otherwise, I'll see you on the next lesson. See you later, kids. Bye, bye, bye.